For decades, Pastor John Hagee has stood as a monumental figure in evangelical Christianity. His fiery sermons and unwavering support for Israel resonating with millions globally, solidifying his place as a household name. Yet, behind the pulpit's commanding presence and the carefully constructed public persona of unwavering faith, whispers of controversy, speculation, and long-held secrets have persistently trailed him, casting shadows upon his charismatic leadership. These persistent rumors have fueled questions about the true nature of this influential preacher, prompting many to wonder what carefully guarded truths lay concealed beneath the surface. What aspects of his life he has deliberately kept hidden from his devoted congregation and the wider world. Now, at the age of 84, after years of strategic silence and skillful deflection, Pastor John Hagee has finally stepped into the light, choosing to confront the persistent rumors, address the lingering doubts, and answer the probing questions that have dogged him for so long. What he reveals in this unprecedented moment of candor is not merely a carefully worded statement or a calculated denial, but a profound and deeply personal confession, a revelation that has the potential to reshape the very foundations of how we understand him, challenging everything we thought we knew about the man behind the ministry. This unexpected transparency prompts a collective gasp as the carefully guarded secrets of a lifetime begin to surface, compelling even his staunchest supporters to reconsider the complexities of his legacy, and leaving the world to grapple with the weighty implications of a truth long shrouded in carefully constructed narratives and masterful public relations. The rumors, like persistent echoes in the halls of faith, had swirled relentlessly for years. The central question dogging Pastor John Hagee's every pronouncement: was he truly the unwavering man of God he so emphatically claimed to be? Or was there a more nuanced, perhaps even darker story lurking beneath the surface of his carefully crafted image? Critics, armed with a litany of perceived inconsistencies, pointed to his often controversial statements, his undeniably lavish lifestyle, and his deeply entrenched political alliances as stark evidence of hypocrisy, suggesting a dissonance between his preached piety and his lived reality, a disconnect that fueled skepticism and eroded trust among some observers. Fervent supporters, unwavering in their devotion, and deeply invested in his spiritual guidance, staunchly defended him as a devoted servant of the Lord, a man who had unequivocally dedicated his life to spreading the gospel, his every action, in their eyes, divinely inspired and guided by a higher purpose, a conviction that often bordered on unwavering adoration. Yet, despite the fervent defenses and the unwavering loyalty of his followers, the questions persisted, the speculation growing louder and more insistent with each passing year, fueled by unanswered queries, unresolved ambiguities, and a growing sense of unease that permeated even the most devout circles. Then, in a stunning, unforeseen turn of events that defied all expectations and shattered the carefully constructed norms of his public persona, Hagee, the master of controlled narratives and strategic ambiguity, unexpectedly sat down for an exclusive, no-holds-barred interview with a major news outlet, a move that sent immediate and powerful ripples of anticipation and apprehension throughout both the religious and secular worlds alike. The setting for this momentous confession, this unprecedented act of public vulnerability, was deliberately intimate and carefully chosen. A quiet, unassuming room nestled within his sprawling San Antonio megachurch, Cornerstone Church, the very heart and operational center of his global ministry empire. As the cameras began to roll, capturing the weighty atmosphere and the palpable tension in the air, the interviewer, poised and direct, expertly cutting through decades of carefully crafted rhetoric, posed the question that had been burning in the collective consciousness, the query that demanded to be answered after decades of carefully constructed ambiguity and strategic deflection. Pastor Hagee, after all these years in the spotlight, After decades of leading millions of souls across the globe, what is the one truth, the singular aspect of your extraordinary journey, that you have deliberately withheld from public knowledge? The deeply personal secret you have never dared to share with your devoted congregation. Hagee, a seasoned orator and masterful communicator accustomed to commanding vast audiences with unwavering confidence and carefully rehearsed pronouncements, paused, a pregnant silence descending upon the room, his face a complex and unreadable tapestry of conflicting emotions, a fleeting and uncharacteristic vulnerability momentarily eclipsing his normally impenetrable and characteristic aura of self-assured certainty. For a pregnant and intensely charged moment, it seemed as though he might skillfully deflect the probing question, expertly evade the core issue with practiced ease, as he had so masterfully and strategically done countless times before throughout his decades in the public spotlight, employing well-honed techniques of rhetorical misdirection and carefully crafted ambiguity. Yet, in a genuinely surprising and deeply significant departure from his long-established pattern of calculated evasion and strategic obfuscation, he leaned forward in his chair, his gaze suddenly direct and intensely focused, his voice resonating with an uncharacteristic tremor of raw emotion and unfiltered vulnerability, and began to speak. The carefully chosen words tumbling forth with a stark, almost unsettling honesty that stunned even his most seasoned observers and cynical critics alike. There are aspects of my life, deeply personal chapters in my complex and often tumultuous story, he admitted, his voice noticeably thick with a palpable weight of long-suppressed emotions and unspoken regrets. Decisions I've made in moments of profound human fallibility, actions born of weakness and imperfect judgment, words I've spoken in the heat of passion, in moments of anger or misdirected zeal, that, with the clarifying and often harsh light of retrospective hindsight, I now unequivocally recognize were fundamentally, demonstrably wrong, significant missteps born of inherent human imperfection, actions I am, in the quiet solitude of my own conscience, and in the presence of my God, far from proud of. The unexpected and deeply personal confession hung heavy and thick in the air, a stark and jarring departure from his usual public pronouncements of unwavering certainty, absolute moral authority, and divinely ordained righteousness. The unexpected confession, delivered with such stark and disarming vulnerability, was profoundly shocking, not merely because of the specific content of his carefully chosen words, but even more significantly, because of the undeniable raw honesty, the palpable sincerity, and the uncharacteristic humility that permeated his voice, his demeanor, and his entire being in that intensely revealing moment. The carefully constructed facade of unwavering certainty, the meticulously cultivated public persona of an infallible spiritual authority, momentarily shattered, revealing a fleeting but undeniably authentic glimpse of the flawed humanity that resided beneath the surface gloss, a vulnerable and deeply introspective man grappling with the weighty burden of his own imperfections and the long-accumulated weight of his past actions. This was not, the stunned audience immediately recognized, the polished, self-assured, commanding preacher the world had so readily come to expect. The larger-than-life figure who effortlessly navigated complex theological debates with intellectual agility and delivered unwavering pronouncements on matters of faith and morality with absolute and unquestioning conviction. Instead, they were witnessing a starkly different John Hagee, a man stripped bare of his carefully constructed defenses, confronting his own inherent human imperfections with unflinching honesty, grappling with the long unacknowledged weight of his past, and seemingly, genuinely, seeking a path toward authentic contrition, a path paved with vulnerability, self-reflection, and a profound desire for genuine redemption. To truly comprehend the magnitude of this pivotal moment in John Hagee's public and personal narrative, however, to fully grasp the profound significance of this unexpected public confession, one must inevitably embark on a journey back to the very genesis of his extraordinary life, to meticulously trace the winding, often unpredictable, and deeply complex path that propelled John Hagee from his humble and unassuming beginnings to becoming one of the most influential and undeniably controversial pastors in the vast and often fractured landscape of contemporary America. A life narrative that is anything but ordinary, a rich and multifaceted tapestry meticulously woven with interwoven threads of unwavering faith, relentless personal ambition, unforeseen and often agonizing personal trials, and a constant, often tumultuous, engagement with the ever-shifting currents of American culture and the global stage. Born in the unassuming and relatively obscure town of Baytown, Texas, in the formative year of 1940, amidst the deeply ingrained heartland of American evangelicalism and the enduring cultural influence of the Bible Belt, John Hagee's earliest formative years were profoundly and inextricably immersed in the deeply ingrained rhythms of devout Christian life. The pervasive influence of faith shaping every aspect of his childhood and adolescence. His father, William Ball Hagee, a respected and deeply committed pastor himself, and his mother, Vodie Swick Hagee, a dedicated and devout homemaker who tirelessly devoted herself to nurturing their family and upholding traditional Christian values, together skillfully instilled in their young son an unwavering and deeply personal love for the Bible, nurturing a robust spiritual foundation that would, inarguably, shape the entire trajectory of his remarkable and often unpredictable life, guiding his decisions, informing his worldview, and ultimately defining his enduring legacy. From a remarkably early age, even in his tender childhood years, Hagee felt an undeniable, almost visceral, calling to ministry, a profound and unwavering sense of divine purpose that resonated deep within the very core of his young soul, a conviction that transcended mere youthful aspiration and permeated the very fabric of his being. And by the remarkably tender age of adolescence, while his peers were often preoccupied with the typical pursuits of teenage life, he was already diligently honing his nascent oratorical skills, practicing his delivery, refining his theological understanding, and actively preaching with youthful fervor and unwavering conviction at local churches throughout his close-knit Texan community, captivating diverse congregations with his passionate and often surprisingly mature delivery, and his undeniably unwavering conviction in the transformative power of his message, even in those early, formative years. Yet, despite this seemingly preordained and divinely guided trajectory, his path to extraordinary and often controversial success, to global influence and undeniable notoriety, was not destined to be without its inherent challenges, its unexpected detours, and its deeply personal complexities, the very trials and tribulations that would ultimately shape him into the complex and multifaceted figure he would eventually become. In the intellectually stimulating and often turbulent environment of the 1960s, a decade marked by profound social and cultural upheaval, John Hagee embarked on his formal academic journey at Trinity University in the vibrant city of San Antonio, diligently pursuing and ultimately earning a Bachelor of Arts degree in the dual disciplines of history and English, a deliberate academic choice that would, in retrospect, undeniably enrich his future communication prowess, hone his analytical skills, and broaden his understanding of human narratives and societal complexities, providing him with a valuable intellectual foundation for his burgeoning ministry and future leadership roles, further expanding his intellectual horizons and demonstrating a commitment to lifelong learning beyond the realm of theological studies. He later pursued and successfully completed a Master of Education degree in Educational Administration from the esteemed University of North Texas, a postgraduate qualification that underscored his dedication to both spiritual and academic pursuits, and provided him with practical administrative skills that would prove invaluable in managing the complex organizational structure of his ever-expanding global ministry. During this formative period of academic and personal growth, as he navigated the challenges of higher education and solidified his intellectual foundations, he also entered into a significant and life-altering personal commitment, entering into matrimony with his first wife, Martha Downing, a union that initially promised lifelong companionship, shared faith, and the establishment of a traditional Christian family unit, a cornerstone of the evangelical values he espoused. Together, in the early years of their marriage, the young couple joyfully welcomed 2 children into their burgeoning lives, embracing the joys and responsibilities of parenthood and diligently building a family amidst the nascent and rapidly evolving years of Hagee's burgeoning ministry, a period marked by both personal fulfillment and the increasing demands of his growing spiritual calling. However, the marriage, despite its initially idyllic promise and the shared foundation of faith that ostensibly bound them together, was, in reality, fraught with unforeseen and increasingly intractable difficulties, burdened by a complex web of unresolved tensions, deeply ingrained personality clashes, and ultimately irreconcilable differences in their fundamental life perspectives and long-term aspirations. A silent struggle that gradually eroded the initial bonds of their union. And in the personally and professionally tumultuous year of 1975, after years of internal emotional struggle, external societal pressures, and ultimately agonizingly difficult soul-searching, they made the profoundly personal and undeniably heartbreaking decision to legally divorce, a deeply painful and intensely private chapter in Hagee's life that would, with the relentless passage of time and the ever-watchful gaze of public scrutiny, later resurface as a significant and enduring source of controversy, persistently fueling criticism from both within and outside the religious community, and prompting often uncomfortable questions about the perceived incongruity, the apparent dissonance, between his frequently articulated public pronouncements on the sanctity of traditional family values, the unwavering permanence of marital vows, and the complex, often messy, realities of his own personal life choices. Hagee's transformative big break, the pivotal watershed moment that irrevocably and dramatically altered the entire trajectory of his burgeoning ministry and propelled him onto the global stage of religious influence, arrived in that same personally and professionally tumultuous year of 1975. A year marked by both profound personal loss and the unexpected genesis of his extraordinary public success. When, with unwavering faith in his divine calling, an indomitable entrepreneurial spirit, and an audacious vision for a ministry that would transcend traditional denominational boundaries, he made the bold and ultimately transformative decision to found Cornerstone Church in his adopted city of San Antonio, Texas. What began as a humble and unassuming gathering of a mere handful of dedicated believers, a small, nascent congregation earnestly seeking spiritual guidance and communal fellowship in a rapidly changing world, quickly and quite unexpectedly grew, with almost exponential velocity, into a sprawling and dynamic megachurch, a testament to the undeniable power of Hagee's uniquely charismatic preaching style, his remarkable and often underestimated ability to connect with diverse individuals on a profoundly personal and emotionally resonant level, and his unwavering, deeply ingrained commitment to delivering a potent and often provocative message of unwavering faith that resonated deeply with a rapidly expanding and increasingly diverse audience, hungry for spiritual certainty in an age of unprecedented social and cultural flux. Recognizing with astute foresight the burgeoning and largely untapped power of mass media, particularly the rapidly expanding reach of television broadcasting, he astutely and strategically began broadcasting his impassioned and often controversial sermons on local television channels, a calculated and innovative move that would prove to be nothing short of transformative. exponentially expanding his reach far beyond the physical and geographical limitations of the brick-and-mortar walls of his burgeoning church, and rapidly, almost instantaneously, capturing the captivated attention of millions of viewers across the vast expanse of the United States, eager to tune in to his often unconventional and always compelling message. By the transformative and culturally defining decade of the 1980s, a period marked by the rise of televangelism and the increasing prominence of evangelical voices in the American public sphere, John Hagee had decisively and unequivocally ascended to become a prominent and increasingly influential figure in the burgeoning and politically potent evangelical movement, widely and often controversially recognized and celebrated for his bold, often fiercely articulated, and undeniably provocative proclamations on a wide range of socially relevant and politically charged topics. His sermons, far from adhering to the traditional and often predictable boundaries of conventional religious teachings, deliberately and strategically transcended those established norms, evolving into highly anticipated, headline-making media events that frequently ignited fervent public debate and often courted significant controversy. Whether he was fearlessly and often controversially addressing the increasingly contentious landscape of American politics from a decidedly conservative Christian perspective, skillfully dissecting complex and often fraught world events through a distinctly biblical and often apocalyptic lens, or even offering his frequently unconventional and often polarizing perspectives on aspects of contemporary pop culture, Hagee demonstrably possessed an uncanny and almost preternatural ability to captivate vast audiences, to strategically seize and command public attention with an unwavering sense of personal conviction and an undeniable mastery of the art of persuasive rhetoric. His carefully crafted messages were, by design, undeniably bold, frequently unapologetically direct in their pronouncements, and at times intentionally and strategically controversial, calculated to provoke thought, ignite debate, and challenge established societal norms. Yet, despite their often polarizing nature, they resonated with remarkable and undeniable power and influence, deeply connecting with a vast and increasingly vocal segment of the American population, particularly within the conservative evangelical demographic, tapping into a pervasive yearning for unwavering spiritual certainty, clear-cut moral pronouncements, and a readily identifiable sense of unwavering direction in an increasingly complex, morally ambiguous, and rapidly changing postmodern world. But John Hagee's profound and often debated impact on the landscape of contemporary Christianity extended far beyond the geographical and cultural borders of the United States, transcending national boundaries and linguistic barriers to reach a truly global audience with his distinctive and often controversial message. Through the ever-expanding and strategically innovative outreach of John Hagee Ministries, his impassioned and meticulously crafted sermons, along with his numerous books and other forms of media, effectively transcended traditional geographical limitations, reaching a vast and diverse global audience in more than 200 countries, spanning a multitude of diverse continents, from the sprawling landscapes of Africa to the densely populated regions of Asia, across the diverse cultures of Europe, to the rapidly developing nations of South America. His core and consistently delivered message, always articulated with unwavering conviction, intense passion, and a masterful command of biblical scripture, resolutely centered on the enduring themes of unwavering faith in the face of adversity. The transformative power of hope in a world often marked by despair, and perhaps most significantly, an unyielding, deeply personal, and often politically charged commitment to the modern nation of Israel and the Jewish people worldwide. "I have always held a deeply ingrained and unwavering belief," Hagee passionately declared on numerous occasions, "that the transformative and life-altering power of the gospel is inherently and unequivocally universal in its scope and redemptive potential, divinely intended for every single soul on this vast and interconnected earth, irrespective of their geographical location, their diverse cultural background, or their linguistic heritage, he emphasized with fervent conviction. It fundamentally transcends all superficial geographical boundaries, all divisive linguistic barriers, and even the often crushing weight of past actions, perceived failures, and accumulated personal regrets. God's boundless and unconditional love is, in its very essence, an all-encompassing and universally accessible force, extending to every corner of humanity, to every individual soul yearning for redemption and spiritual solace, and therefore, so too, must be his eternally relevant and profoundly life-altering message of grace, forgiveness, and the promise of everlasting salvation, a message that knows no boundaries, recognizes no limitations, and offers hope to all who are willing to receive it. His frequently articulated, deeply held, and often politically controversial support for the modern nation of Israel, and his unwavering advocacy for the Jewish people globally, ultimately emerged as a defining and undeniably polarizing pillar of his multifaceted and often debated ministry, a central tenet of his theological framework and a consistent theme throughout his extensive body of work. In 2006, driven by his deeply ingrained theological convictions, his fervent belief in biblical prophecy, and his unwavering sense of divinely ordained purpose, he made the strategically significant decision to found Christians United for Israel, CUFI, an organization that has since burgeoned, under his dynamic and often controversial leadership, into one of the largest, most politically influential, and undeniably most vocal pro-Israel organizations operating worldwide, boasting a remarkably vast and politically potent membership, exceeding 10 million individuals, predominantly concentrated within the conservative evangelical demographic across the United States. For Hagee, standing in unwavering solidarity with the modern nation of Israel was not merely a casually held personal belief, a politically expedient stance, or a culturally fashionable cause to champion, but rather a profound, deeply ingrained, and divinely ordained calling, a non-negotiable and absolutely central tenet of his complex and often inflexible theological framework, a sacred and inviolable responsibility entrusted to him directly by God himself. Israel, Hagee often proclaimed from his pulpit with prophetic fervor and unwavering conviction, drawing heavily upon his interpretation of biblical prophecy and his deeply held dispensationalist theological views, serves as the critically important canary in the coal mine for the entire world, a strategically vital geopolitical indicator whose fate is inextricably and prophetically linked to the ultimate destiny of all nations, he passionately argued, often invoking apocalyptic imagery and end-time scenarios to underscore his point. What transpires within the geographically and spiritually significant borders of Israel, the unfolding dramas, the geopolitical tensions, the spiritual conflicts, profoundly and inevitably reverberates across the entire globe, impacting the delicate and often precarious balance of world affairs, both in the present and in the rapidly approaching future, he continued with unwavering conviction. As devout and biblically informed Christians, we bear a sacred and non-negotiable responsibility, a divinely ordained mandate directly from the very Word of God, to stand resolutely and unequivocally with the nation of Israel, to offer our unwavering support, our fervent prayers, and our steadfast political advocacy, not merely because it pragmatically aligns with perceived political expediency or contemporary notions of human morality, but because it fundamentally constitutes a direct and unambiguous commandment from God Himself, a divine imperative that transcends temporal concerns and earthly considerations. This unwavering, often fiercely articulated, and undeniably politically charged stance, particularly his organization's active and often controversial lobbying efforts in Washington, D.C., on behalf of specific Israeli government policies, has undeniably earned him both fervent and often unquestioning praise from within his devoted evangelical base, and equally vehement and often scathing criticism from a diverse spectrum of voices both within and outside the religious and political spheres. Devoted followers, deeply entrenched in dispensationalist theology and often predisposed to unwavering support for Israel, perceive him as nothing less than a modern-day prophet, a divinely appointed messenger and spiritual visionary faithfully and courageously, fulfilling long-foretold biblical prophecies concerning the prophesied restoration of Israel in the end times, viewing his political activism as a direct extension of his divinely ordained spiritual mission. While vocal and often highly critical detractors, particularly those within mainline Protestant denominations, progressive Christian circles, and secular human rights organizations, vehemently argue that his pronounced and often polarizing involvement in complex and politically fraught international political affairs, particularly his unwavering alignment with often controversial policies of specific Israeli political administrations, inappropriately and perhaps even unethically, crosses the carefully established and constitutionally protected boundaries separating the spheres of church and state, blurring the often essential lines between genuine spiritual guidance and potentially biased partisan political advocacy, raising serious concerns about the potential for undue religious influence on secular governmental policy and international relations. Hagee, however, throughout decades of intense scrutiny and often vitriolic public debate, remains resolutely and steadfastly unapologetic in his deeply held convictions, consistently and unequivocally defending his often controversial actions, his frequently debated pronouncements, and the very foundations of his politically charged ministry with unwavering conviction and characteristic rhetorical force.